Howdy everyone. I'm going to show you how to build a hydroponic drip system. It's easy and it's really pretty much do it yourself. And I've been using this system for a while, and so I want to go over what it takes to build it, and it will have a link to an article down below in the description where I will be able to list all the parts and show you where to get them. So check that out. Okay, so a little bit of background. This is a 2x8 closet, and I have 4 pots in here, and they all each have 4 drippers, and that's because you don't want to just have one, because if it plugs then your plants aren't getting watered. You want more is better because it spreads the water out. These pots are filled with grow stones. Now it's called buddy stones. It's the same product. There's a couple of things we need to talk about. First of all, you can use a top feed drip system in any kind of media at all, but we're talking about hydroponic dripper systems, and hydroponics is a little bit different. For hydroponics, you need to use an inert media. That means buddy stones, hydroton, perlite. You don't run cocoa in it, although you can. I've done it, but it's really hard. You really have to stay on top of things. So I don't recommend well, actually, let me go back. The other thing about this system is that it is recirculating. So I have the pots up top, I have my drip manifold, and I have a tray down on the bottom where there's a pump that feeds these, and from these it goes out, and then it goes back down again through a drain fitting. So what we're talking about here is a recirculating system. So you're gonna need at least 2 totes. You're gonna need one to hold your plants, and you're gonna need one to use as a reservoir. They can be anything. If you look at this one here, this was a 40-gallon tote, and I cut the sides back because I didn't want it too tall. One of the things I've used in the past, and they're really cheap, this tote down here that I'm using for a reservoir is a 2x3 tub, a mixing tub. You can get them at Home Depot for, well, the last time I checked they were 13-14 bucks, but lately everything is going up in price, so they might be a little more than that now. You can use those on top also. You know, here's the thing. It's a challenge if you're in a closet or a tent, because a lot of things that work in a regular grow room won't fit. If you buy, like this particular closet, it's 2 feet by 8 feet, and it is pretty much 2 feet. It's, you know, the doors are barely touching those Home Depot totes. So if you were to buy a regular flood tray and they say 2x4, it's not 2x4. It's 2x4 inside the tray, but the outside dimensions are much larger. So for example, in addition to this, I have a 2x4 grow tent, and I could not find anything that was exactly 2 feet and 4 feet long. So I had to find a different kind of tote, but that's one of the, you know, problems with growing in a small space. But you can use any size tote as long as you can make it fit. It can be these Home Depot ones, or it can be one of these. This was one of those black and yellow totes, and I cut about 6 inches off it just because I wanted it shorter. You don't have to, you know, You can do this with one tote or two totes. My system, I am running both totes, and I'm running them on one pump. So that's, we're going to get into this a little bit more. Now, the first thing is, your tote, you can see I've got a waffle grid in there. Now these were some seed flats that I cut to size to fit in the bottom, and the reason for that is I don't want my pot standing in water. If you can fit a regular Botanicare flood tray in your grow, great. It's grooved and it will drain all the water away. But these, most totes that I have seen, they're either flat or they do have ridges, but they're all the wrong way, and it's really, really hard to get them to drain entirely. So I don't mind a little bit of water sitting in the bottom as long as my pots aren't sitting in it. So we'll start with the pots. Now I am running these pots. I love them. They're big. They're 2.5 gallon pots. And if you see these green things on the side, I use them to train my plants, to tie branches down. You can use a smaller pot, but I like to size up. So how I start this, I like to clone in cocoa. You know, I've used rock wool, I've used rapid rooters, ready rooters, all that stuff, but I get the best results just cloning in straight cocoa. I get the bricks and I bring them up to 300 parts per million, and I just clone right in them. I get better results and I get better root systems. So what I start out in, if you can see this, it's about a 2, maybe 2.5 inch pot. Now fill it with cocoa and I stick my clone in there, and then it goes into a dome. Okay, then when it's really well rooted, I pot it up. Sometimes I'll use one of these, and this is about a 4.5 inch pot, but I will pot it into grow stones. I have a drip system in my clone and veg closet too. So the problem with the cocoa is you have to be careful, because if it gets in your system, it can plug up your drippers. So from there, I put it in one of these, and it's about a 5 inch pot, and that I only use those if I'm going to be vegging for a while. And then those go directly in here. I don't start out in these big pots. I really think it's better to pot up as you go, but once I get them in here, I want a big pot so they've got lots of room to expand their roots. So I'll put a link to these pots. They're pricey, I'll tell you, but they will last you a lifetime. I think they're made by Hydroponic. And anyway, and they're pretty much designed for flood and drain, or drip. Anyway, so that's the first part of it. The second part is my manifold. Now this is a Floraflex manifold, and there are others. You can use Orbit even makes them that you can get at Lowe's or Home Depot, and they'll work. I just happen to use these. The one thing you don't want to skimp on, this tubing, the green tubing is Floraflex tubing. It's super flexible. Anything else you're going to have a problem with. It's just too stiff and you can't lay the lines down where you want them. So definitely get that. I mean, there are, I think Octobubbler makes a pretty good bubbler, and then there's the Floraflex one. You can get them on Amazon. But I want to point out, you want the open flow Floraflex manifold. You don't want all the shit on the inside that controls the flow, because we're not running regular drippers. We are running open-ended tubing, and that's what we want. Less plugs and all that good stuff. If you want, you can stick a T in there, so you have 2 streams out of each one, and I've thought about it, but the plants seem to get plenty of water just like this. So make sure whatever type of manifold you get, you want it to be open. Some of them you can just take the stuff out. I think I just took everything out on the octobubbler one that I had, and I'm pretty sure, if I remember right, the Orbit ones are all open flow. So anyway, you want an open flow manifold, and you want this Floraflex tubing because it's flexible. You know, your regular black 1/4 inch tubing, it's just too rigid. You really can't work with it. Don't skimp on your tubing. Okay, so what you're going to need to do, you're going to need to drill whatever tote you choose out and add a pair of these. These are from Botanicare. They're flood and drain fittings. You're going to need to drill the right size hole. Now I use this one, and you can see it's 1 1/4. It's a little bit tight, but when you drill those holes, you're better off a little bit tight than too big. What you can do is you can run a deburring tool around the hole if you need to, but a lot of times I'll find that makes a pretty good hole, and you can just literally screw these into the hole and it'll follow the threads. There is on these a rubber gasket, and the rubber gasket is designed to go on the bottom side of your tub, not on the inside. And tighten them up good, they won't leak. So one is 1/2 inch, one's 3 1/4. You're gonna need a piece of 1/2 inch tubing to connect your pump to the 1/2 inch fitting, and I don't attach anything to the 3/4 fitting. I just let it drain, and that way I get a waterfall effect. And so, I mean, what I do, this tote, these totes sit on a board over the reservoir, and I drill holes in the board for the 2 fittings. I put them on the ends. Some people put fittings in the middle. I like them on the end. So we got this one here, has the drip manifold on it. Now you're going to need a fitting to go from 3/4 to 1/2 inch pipe. The top of the manifold takes a 1/2 inch nail, just slipped by mail, 1/2 inch PVC, and you'll need that. The 3/4 to 1/2 is kind of hard to find. I did manage to find them on Amazon. I'll put a link to it. And yes, these are leaking a little bit, but it's no biggie. If you use a different brand besides Botanicare, there's a really good chance you might need to drill a different size hole. You know, but you want to make sure you drill the right size hole, otherwise your tub's going to be trashed, whatever it is you use. So, like I said, you can use any kind of tub you want. You know, the easiest, cheapest way to do this is with these 2x3 totes that you get from Home Depot for about 13 bucks. But if you have a spare set of totes, use them, you know. And the only thing is you need to have your plants above your reservoir so you'll have a gravity feed going on. Alrighty. So what I have, I'll show you the pump. This is not the one that's running right now. This is an Echo Plus 396, and I modify it. If you look at the end, you can see what I've got there is a 1/2 inch 90-degree street elbow and a little bit of extra space with a short piece of 1/2 inch PVC. And the reason I do that is so that when I set it down, I can pull from the bottom, and when I want to drain my tote, I can get almost all the water out before this baby runs dry. So these are great pumps. They're not that expensive. I think they're around 35 bucks, again on Amazon, and I'll have links to it in the article. But this is what I use. I tried using a larger one, and it didn't really give me any more water. So 396, Does it run all the time? No. I run it on a cycle. And I can't tell you what your cycle should be because it's going to depend on the number of drip lines you have, on the size of your pots, and on the stage of growth of your plants. But for these pots, I run about 5 minutes on, and then the time off varies depending on the size of the plant. So for a full-size plant, I might run every 2-3 hours. Most important thing, when you do run them, watch your pots. You want to make sure you're getting runoff, because that means you won't have salt buildup in your media, and that's real important. So whatever size pot you use and whatever cycle you use, you always want to get runoff. To be honest, if you're running grow stones or hydroton or even perlite, you could probably run this 24/7 and it wouldn't hurt anything. It's just that most people say you should not water at night. I don't know if that's true. I think plants do use it. I would not run it constant at night, but if you're running it during the day, you might, give it one run at night to, moisten everything up, because these stones don't hold a whole lot of water, and if your plants are mature, especially during the day, they can suck them dry in no time. So you're going to have to figure out your own feeding schedule. The only thing is just make sure you're getting runoff. And then you need a timer, and that way it's all automatic, so you don't have to be standing over it. I use these cheap timers that I get on Amazon. They cost, I don't know, 12-13 bucks maybe. They work great. You can set them in 1 minute intervals, and I think you can do up to 15 settings a day. It's kind of a pain in the ass to program them, but once you got them programmed, you never have to worry about watering on time. All you got to do is make sure your reservoir stays topped up, and that is another thing we need to talk about. You're running a hydroponic drip system. You want to use hydroponic nutrients that are designed for a recirculating system, and there's 2 brands that I will recommend. I use House and Garden Aqua Flakes. I love it. It works great. But another one you can use, and I've used in the past, is the Canna, the Aqua Flores, and that works great, and they're both real stable pH wise. Can't go wrong with either one of them. But don't be running organics. No molasses, none of that crap, no bat guano, because you're going to plug your emitters, okay? You're doing a hydroponic grow. It's important to make sure everything these plants need is in the nutrient solution in the reservoir. And then you get spectacular growth, because these plants don't have to search around for nutrients. They're always being fed, but you need to feed at a lower level than you would otherwise, because they're getting almost a constant feed. So, some things I just can't tell you what you should be running. I can tell you that even in these big pots, and even with mature plants, I very seldom go over 900 parts per million on the 500 scale. A lot of times less is more. Also, I will say, be careful with additives, because most of them, the amounts they tell you to use are based on Pro-Mix or cocoa, and these stones have no buffering capacity at all. So you need to feed less. No matter what you're using, when you test it out, I would test it out at half strength. I don't really think you need to run a lot of additives. One that I found to be really helpful is a product called Mr. Fulvic, because there's no fulvic acid in stones. There's some in soil and it gets used up fast, but I've seen good results with it. It's not necessary, but if you use it, you'll probably get better results. So bloom boosters, you really have to be careful, because that potassium in there can fuck your leaves up. So go easy on them. That's really pretty much it. I will, you know, like I said, I can cover stuff in more detail in the article, because I can, you know, show you something, I can, you know, explain something a little better, and I'm not stumbling over my own tongue. But this is a great system, and you can grow really good plants with it. You just have to remember, it's hydroponics, it's not anything else, okay? So you need to run it as a hydroponic system. And the one thing I want to say before I go, I did mention this, you can run a recirculating system with cocoa, because I know a lot of people growing cocoa, but it's really hard. That's why cocoa is usually run drain to waste. The problem is plants take out different things at different times, and your reservoir can get unbalanced for a certain nutrient or even a bunch of nutrients. And cocoa, by nature, likes to hold on to potassium, and if it gets too much of that, then you start losing your calcium and magnesium. So it's hard. If you're going to do it, you really need to stay on top of your reservoir, and you probably want to change it out once a week. But it can be done. I'm just warning you, if you try it, it's hard. That's all. I've done it. It works. But the top feed drip you can use in anything. I mean, you can grow it, and you can use this system in cocoa. You can use it in Pro Mix, but you probably want to go drain to waste for those types of systems. Anyhow, I hope this helped. I really encourage you to give this a try, and I'll see you next time, so take care of yourselves. Bye bye.